I'd like to call to order the regular governing board meeting of the Jefferson Elementary School District for August 21st, 2019. May I please get members present?
Shakil Ali.
Here.
Marie Brizuela is absent. Maybell Manio.
Here.
Manufo Leah Inga Anawai.
Here.
Clayton Koo.
Here. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Vidalis, would you mind us leading us today?
Stand. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is item 4, governance team meeting guidelines. Governance team members will review the governance team meeting guidelines. Okay. Next item is item 5, approval of the agenda. But before we approve, there was a request from a board member to remove and table item 17A from the agenda for a future meeting. 17A is the item on conference with labor negotiators during closed session. 17A.
Yeah. So we're tabling
For a future meeting.
the closed session?
Yeah, or no, just the item A, the conference with labor negotiators.
Oh, so we're still having the closed session, but we just don't want to,
Yeah, just not that item. Yep.
okay.
If that works for everybody, I'll entertain a motion on the agenda.
I'd like to motion approval of the agenda with the tabling of item 17A.
Well, I guess I'm a little confused of why we would table.
Mr. Vidal, would you clarify?
Yeah, we had a request from a board member to table that item because they were not able to be here to participate in that conversation. And I said I would bring it to the board for your consideration.
I'm going to be honest, I'm a little uncomfortable because this is, I mean, I would think this is time sensitive, labor negotiations.
Okay. I will withdraw.
Okay.
If there's a consensus, I will, that we keep it on.
Okay.
From my understanding, I think that it was requested for B, not A.
No, it was A. I had that conversation today.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I've had several of those conversations today, and I think it is B. So if we could table that instead to the next,
It's,
To the
I
motion
don't think
then?
that that's time sensitive, so I'm not even,
yes, B will have no conversation, but it doesn't matter if it's in closed session or not, you will still get your materials before you leave today.
right,
They can be tabled. There's not going to be any topic of conversation.
okay. Okay.
So I need some clarifying on the motion for the agenda. Let's make a motion. Tabling A, tabling B, neither of the options.
I make a motion to approve the agenda with tabling 17B.
second.
First and a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so we will table item 17B, superintendent evaluation. Next item is item 6, communication, 6A, board member acknowledgement and commendations. I will go start with Ms. Liagi Anawai.
Just welcome back to a new school year. I saw the excitement passing several of the schools throughout the morning. I wasn't able to be at the school site, but definitely was exciting to see a lot of the families pull up, excited to get their children to school. Outside of that, I just wanted to put out a save the date from Superintendent Tony Thurman for September 24th for the Close the Achievement Gap Initiative. There will be a virtual town hall meeting. And there also is a request if counties and/or local school districts would like to host a virtual town hall meeting in their area. So I'm putting the ask out to our superintendent if we want to be a hosting station for that. I think the County Office of Ed was considering it as well, but it is September 24th at 3 o'clock. And if we're interested, we can speak offline about the details. But other than that, I'm wishing everyone a great school year, and it feels good to be back. Hope you all had a wonderful and restful summer.
What day of the week is that? September 24th?
September 24th.
Oh, what day of the week? Do you know?
I don't know it off the top of my head, sorry.
iPhone.
It's a Tuesday.
Okay, cool. Tuesday, September 24th. Okay.
I also want to welcome everybody back to the school year. I hope you all had a great summer that was restful and of quality to you. And I saw how seamless the first day of school went, specifically at Ben Franklin, and how involved all of the staff was with getting all of the parents and the kids what they needed in terms of schedules and Chromebooks and everything like that. So that went really well. I'm just happy to, get back to it. So welcome back, everybody.
Yes, so I would like to acknowledge and commend all the great work that everyone's doing, and specifically Woodrow Wilson School, because one of our constituents, their daughter just started there, and he was raving about the principal and the school. He's very happy. And I also did receive communication from one of the teachers and paraprofessionals, and they're both happy. They're both new to our district, and so anyway, I'm happy to be back as well and get some work done.
Echoing everybody else, I just want to welcome everybody back to school on the very first day of school. I was also able to attend Institute Day last Friday. Just kind of welcome all the new and returning teachers back, and just want to wish you all a great start to the new year, or the school year, I mean. Next item, 6B, correspondence and superintendent comments.
So echoing the thoughts of the board, school started today. I just want to commend all the staff and the work that they put into getting the first day off in a positive direction. Teachers, classified staff, and a special shout out to the maintenance and custodial staff and for their work in the summer. I walked by many schools, walked through many schools today in the last couple of days, and the level of cleanliness is something I had not observed in many years. And I made a point to express to them how important it was to have an environment that respects our students, and that cleanliness starts with cleanliness. And so I have full confidence that they will be able to maintain that as the school year moves forward.
Thanks. Next item is item 6C, persons wishing to address the board. This portion of the agenda is available for individuals to comment on or address the board on any issue that is under the board's jurisdiction and not on the agenda. The maximum time allowed for any speaker is usually 2 minutes. And we have one speaker, Liz O'Neill, principal.
Hello. I just want to echo a lot of what you've already said. We had such a wonderful first day today at Westlake. I couldn't be more thrilled. And I really want to give a special thanks to Superintendent Vidalis and Dr. Joyner for coming today. It meant a lot to the staff. I had so many comments from office and teachers and staff, and to me personally too. So thank you so much for coming out. Couldn't be happier with the way our year has started. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is item 7, general functions, 7A, consent agenda. The administration recommends approval of the starred items on the rest of the agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
There's a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That was unanimous. Next item is item 7F, 2019 Legislative Awards Program. The administration recommends that the board consider nominating a member of the state legislature or Congress for one of CSBA's 2019 legislative awards.
We did not receive a nominating packet for a legislator, so this item is not, we have nothing to vote on.
Okay.
I just had a question again. Is that due on the 5th, September 5th?
Yes, it is due on the 5th, but it requires board approval.
Okay.
So today was a meeting where that would happen.
Thank you.
Next item is item 7G, CSBA call for nominations for directors at large. CSBA is seeking nominations for directors at large, African American, American Indian, and county. The administration recommends that the board considers making a nomination. Nomination packets are due to the superintendent by September 11th, 2019 for consideration at the September 25th board meeting. This is submitted for the board's information. I guess any questions on this item or comments?
A general question. I know that there are 4 areas, and I know that there's an API nomination, or there is an opportunity for that. Is that not on this list because that person's tenure has not expired? I wasn't sure.
I do know that there is a seat for API, and they do rotate which ones are open every 2 years or
Okay.
every year.
So they're not all on the same-
These are the ones that are open
open
right
now.
now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and if you have a nomination again, please speak to the person you're nominating. Make sure that they're in agreement so that we can consider them with the nomination packet at our September 25th board meeting.
Thank you.
I can also clarify, that is correct. They rotate, so there's about half of them who get nominated this year and then next year around, so that it's not always alternation, yeah. Next item is item 7H, JESD Annual Board Governance Workshop. The board will discuss selecting a governance workshop meeting date on either Saturday, January 25th, 2020, February 8th, 2020, or February 29th, 2020 with CSBA consultant Luann Rivera. So currently the first date is open while the other 2 dates are tentative, depending what the board decides they want to do.
Yeah, so Ms. Rivera knows how much we enjoy working with her, and we reached out to her in July, and she got back to us. We were first on her list. So she is available on Saturday, the 25th, for sure. She might or might not be available on the other 2. She's not certain yet.
So go ahead first.
I'd like to ask or motion if we're all available on the 25th, since that's the confirmed date for her, that we move forward on calendaring January 25th, 2020.
Second.
Does that work for you as well? Does that date work for you? Okay, cool. So first and a second to approve selecting January 25th, 2020 for our annual board governance workshop. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next item is item 7I, Workforce Housing Update. A representative from Launi Architecture will present an update on the workforce housing project designs and other considerations. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, everybody. And I just want to say how much we've enjoyed working with district leadership on developing this, and also with our colleagues at our, what do we call, RGM Kramer. It's been a very productive time, and I hope you'll see from the results that we've had very good results. Thanks. That would have been a cliffhanger. All right, so thank you very much again. So if the last time that we saw you, it was to approve us going forward with projects. So this is an opportunity for us to update you on our progress. As you recall, on the grounds of the Margaret P. Brown Elementary School, we're proposing workforce housing We have 56 units that we are planning out. And I'm just going to take you through a review, first of all, of the location. As you know, it's the fields to the west of the solar panels. It's like a little plateau, a tongue that sticks out over the surrounding terrain, and which is a great advantage. It's not shown here on this. I just realized after reviewing our own presentation that we need a diagram that shows which direction are the views, where's the wind coming from, what's the sun doing, and at some point we will provide that later. But I can just wave at it right now. Generally, the views are to the upper left of the screen. Those are the ocean views. There are also views up the hill and down the hill, but the most spectacular ones are up to the left. As you know from living here, the wind comes in from the west and it carries fog with it. I think we had a great example of it tonight. And then, of course, the sun is generally in the south, except in the summer when it rises and sets above east and west. Generally speaking, it's in the south. This will all make sense in a minute when I show you the site plan. And so what we've done is that we have created this, what we characterize as garden apartments around this courtyard. There's a number of reasons to do that. Part of it is the things I just talked about. With the wind here sometimes being uncomfortable, we want to create a protected outdoor space, someplace where people could go outside and still enjoy themselves even when the fog was rolling over the top. We placed the taller buildings towards the portion of the site that overlooks the views to the north, and we placed the shorter buildings to the south, and that has two reasons. One, there's views to the north, and so there's actually ocean views through those trees. That's very nice. And then the other thing is by having the low buildings in the south, that allows the maximum amount of sun penetration into the courtyard. And during the course of our meetings, we've really gotten a stronger sense of how cold it can be here sometimes. And so we've really turned our attention to how do you make a comfortable outdoor environment. People want to be outside. You've got to give them some protection, and a lot of the scheme is geared towards that. All right. And then the other thing we thought was really important is a sense of greenery and a sense of a connection with nature. There have been multiple studies that have shown that people function better, that they emotionally are better off if they have a connection. And this site is really beautifully set up for that, as it's already surrounded by mature trees. And then we would augment that with trees that would still allow sunlight into the units, but would also enhance the greenery. So I'll talk a little bit about precedents. We typically look at other buildings to see what would be an appropriate expression of something that would be the right scale, that has a material palette that we can draw upon. And so we looked at several different options. We had on the left here a little bit more industrial aesthetic, so corrugated. It is a seaside expression, but we thought that that would be a little bit too harsh. The other takeaways, we have the upper center image, very modern, very crisp. Of course, as architects, we love that, but does it feel homey? Does it feel residential? We really questioned that, and so we shied away from it. The things that did start to interest us were, for instance, in the bottom center panel, you see that the use of a wood-like material, whether it's actually wood or not, it conveys that sense of warmth, and so that was an interest. The other thing that you can see in this image is that the individual units start to be identifiable, and this is something where you can point at your unit and say, I live there. It's a very subtle thing. Instead of just a wall of windows where you don't know which one's yours, now you can say, that's my home. And the upper right image is a further expression of that. There's a stoop, there's these colorful canopies that mark the entries, and then there's that residential scale where a person is not dwarfed by the building, even though that's a 3-story building in some places. It has a nice, intimate residential scale, so striving for that. And then really these are just more examples of those principles carried out, some of them to a greater or lesser degree of success. We liked the image on the right, but brick does not seem to be an appropriate image for Daly City. We really started to hew to, for instance, that image in the upper left, that kind of, this is cement panel, but it has that clapboard siding, so that has a residential feel. It has a certain, if you get the right texture, it has a certain warmth to it. And then also the other thing that we wanted to be very cognizant of is economy. It's very economical, but it still looks great and it lasts. And then from the landscape perspective, as you may know, we have a landscape architect on our staff, and she has really been directing her attention on how to make the outdoor spaces, first of all, appropriate for the location. So all of our plantings are going to be either native or adaptive. That way they won't use much water. So water, of course, water use is a concern. I think that also these precedents give a sense of the feeling we're trying to create in the courtyard, where in the image on the left, those are the native and adaptive species, but also this sense of discovery around a corner. So you're looking through and you see that there's something beyond and you want to go there. And I'll have an image later that shows that. We're also proposing that there might be gardens, that each of the individual tenants could cultivate herbs or vegetables. I think that would draw people outside. It's very inexpensive in terms of upkeep and maintenance, and it's an activity that people can share. And then also, this is something that we're continuing to develop, or just starting to develop with the team, the leadership team over at the district, is how do we deal with the life of children in this community? Like, what is it that we want to create for them? Is it something off the shelf, or is it something more customized? And we're trying to figure out what's the best approach. And of course, we'd love some feedback. I showed this image on the bottom left. We are proposing a green roof on the community building for a couple of different reasons. One is that it actually is good for treating water. So water that passes through plant growth on the roof is filtered automatically, so it takes care of some of our obligation under state law for water treatment. But also for those units that are above the roof of the community center looking down, this is a much more pleasant thing to see than, for instance, a roofing material and a bunch of vent pipes sticking out. So we're proposing that, and we'll carry it as far as we can. And then, of course, the image on the bottom right is just really about that sense of greenery and lushness. So without further ado, let's just take you straight into the views. This is the community room that's shown in the center right of the image, and we have a tot lot with no fence. That's been fixed in subsequent models. Because having had toddlers, I know you need a fence, just to give you that extra few seconds to save them from doing something. So that area that you can see the play equipment would be surrounded by some kind of fence material that is, kid resistant. But also it gives them a sense of security, and it gives parents who might be doing laundry. The laundry is the space that's in the more orange wood on the left, that's lower as part of the community. Does this thing have a... Oh, well, doesn't really work. So then you notice that we have these wide windows, so that if you are in the laundry or in the community space and you have your children or your toddler out on the lawn, you can keep an eye on them. And it's enclosed, as you can see from the site plan, so there's just that sense of security. The other thing we've done is incorporated a deck on the afternoon sunny side of the community room. So it'd be a place to go out and soak up what sun there is. And it is also featuring this overhang so that if it's raining, you can still be outside and be comfortable. The other thing I think that we can take away from this view, first of all, the incorporation of those natural materials or things that have a warm tone to them. But you'll notice that on the 3-story building, there's a band that's 2 stories in height, and then there's the top that's 1 story. This is really to take this really much taller building and bring it down to the human scale. You have that band that relates to the height of the other buildings that we'll see later. And it all comes back to trying to give an intimacy, a more residential tone to the entire project. We're proposing private open space. One thing I will say about private open space is that it should never be transparent because people will put whatever they put. And so we're proposing something a little bit more solid. So that you can put your bike or your barbecue out there and nobody will get upset. And then this also gives somewhat of a view of how the entry sequence works. To the right there, that would be the entries to the doors, and then there's a stair that leads up. It's a breezeway that goes up to the upper levels. And then this is a view that was a little bit more realistic. We started to add some fog. We didn't want to add too much fog because then the building would go away. But this would be the view from the trail that actually comes up from the neighborhood. And this shows the 3-story high portion of the project from the tree side of it. Yeah. And you can see the solar panels there on the right. Then we'll have a little tour here, a video tour, if this works. And so let's, without further ado, see if it does work. Come on, baby. Oh. Yeah, let's give it a minute. We'll give it a moment to pause. So really, we do have the video as a separate file, so we'll still get to see it. I had such, oh, there you go. This requires a little more interaction. All right. So, of course, this is the view looking down East Moore, and you can see the schools on your left. Then we'll jump to the aerial. This, I think, illustrates pretty well how you'd get sun penetration into the courtyard. The scale, again, of most of the buildings is that two-story high residential scale. We've got this ring road, and one of the featured characteristics of the ring road is that all the parking, or most of the parking, is oriented so that the vehicles are pointing out, so you don't get somebody's headlights in your living room of a night or evening. The views there off to the center of the screen over the hills. And one thing we should add, of course, is this study was done as a modular. And so the division of the pieces that you see with the roofs and the kind of light switch roofs and the flat roofs is a function of the modular nature. Here we are hovering above the protected courtyard. And then we'll go in for a closer look. There's the fence. Makes me feel safer already. All right, watch out, lady, here we come. There you go, you have that sense of entry again, private space. And of course, they do also have the function of helping to articulate the facade and give it some more drama and interest. Most of the living rooms are oriented outward with the idea that the primary views are towards the outside and that if you want to enjoy the courtyard, you just go out to it. And then you should recognize this view and then dip into the courtyard again. This is one of those vistas where you see through and you're curious about what's beyond. And then if you happen to be a camera in this program, you blast through the wall. Protected open space. And I think the thing that's not in here that makes it a little bit more realistic would be the planters for the gardens, which we see as adjoining this walkway that's in the front and center. And then I think back to the beginning. The community center, you can see, is really the heart of the complex. There's a larger kitchen, tables where people could bring a larger group together. If you had family over for Thanksgiving, you could host them there. And then, of course, it has the laundry facility as well. Yeah. Can you advance me one there? All right. Excellent. So, excellent. All right. So now I'd like to show you a little bit more of the technical plans to understand the organization. I think the overall site plan shows the parking orientation I was speaking to earlier. Part of the reason that we also have the ring road is for fire access. The fire department is very sensitive about being able to reach every part of the complex, and so we're very responsive to them. Even though the street on the bottom, for instance, is indicated as two-way, we expect that because of the way that the parking spaces are arranged, it will really function as a one-way street, and then when the fire truck needs to come, they have the width they need to fight fires, hopefully not necessary. Another thing you can see here is the relationship to the drop-off at the school. Even though it's outside the fence line, all of the school traffic is, before it gets to the residential area, it's diverted off to the left. but there would be a shared driveway there. And then this enlargement, I think you begin to see the details of the community center. The laundry is the facility on the north side of that sort of terracotta piece, and then the community room at large is on the bottom part. The deck to the left with a ramp going up to it, and then the top lot, the gardens. And then the other feature of this, of the entire site plan that we wanted to point out and get you to weigh in on is we have the entrances oriented so that everyone who parks has to come into the courtyard and then go to their front door. A lot of times you'll be in an apartment complex where you can just filter in from anywhere. There's two reasons that we thought this was a good idea. One is then you don't have people walking by your door or your windows that don't live there. But the other part is that if you bring people into the courtyard, then it gives them an opportunity to interact with their neighbors and for that sense of community to be built. You see somebody across the way, you can say hello. And if everyone's coming in to the same central courtyard, then that can take place. We did present a lot of different ways to get in. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 entries into the courtyard. So it's not that there aren't ways to get through. But we would really love to get your feedback on that. We think it's a significant feature. All right, and then the last part of the presentation is just going through the unit plans. One thing you'll notice, that double wall in the center, that's a function of the modular construction. And so each of those pieces is a module. In the case of these buildings at the top, you can see those modules are back to back. That would actually be built as one single piece. It would arrive on the site as a single piece. It would have the kitchen appliances, all the millwork. It would have all the finishes completed already. And so when you open the door, you make some connections, it's instantly livable. And then the stacking is something that takes place quite quickly. They can usually stack about 12 of those a day. And so I haven't counted our modules. I could do a quick count. 30, 40, 16, 48. So this could probably be stacked in a couple of weeks. And it's very dramatic. The foundation work takes some time, the site work takes some time, and then magically there's a building. And so, of course, we'll be working with the construction management team to determine the timing for that, though could be something for the kids to watch. Really interesting stuff. Instant building. And then, as you have in your packets there, you can look at it a little bit more closely. These are actually very nice units. We've done units that are much more efficient, but I think these ones they're efficient without being too grand, comfortable places to live. The basic premise is you enter into the living space. You've got a kitchen generally to your right, and the main living space to your left. And then beyond a portal is the bedroom zone. So it's segregated, there's privacy, a little hallway, so that people coming in or guests really aren't looking into that. And then, of course, the bathroom is also in that zone that comes in that module. The general arrangement for the two bedrooms it's almost identical. The only difference is that the bathroom moves to the center of that right module, and the bedrooms go to either end. And then with 2 bedrooms, we have one that's designated more of a junior, and then the other is the master with a walk-in closet. And the 3-bedroom, I think the pattern is clear. Living room module is pretty much exactly the same as in the others. Now you're passing through a bedroom module to get to the other bedrooms, but really that portal there on the left designates the change between the public zone and the private zone. This last page just has the kind of data regarding the project. And so there are 56 units, 31 bedrooms, 22 bedrooms, and 6 3-bedrooms, and 97 parking spaces. And that's where we are right now. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions from board members or comments?
It looks good.
Thank you.
And hopefully it'll get built and it'll feel good once people move in there. But yeah, I'm actually very impressed by what I've seen so far. Definitely went beyond what my imagination was.
Right.
And you explained very well some of the features that I was noticing. Yeah, so that's my input for right now.
All right, thank you, thank you.
I was very impressed by the presentation.
Thank
I thought
you.
this was put together very well, and all of the things that you mentioned, it's very thoughtful. Can you hear me? Sorry. All of the features that you mentioned were very thoughtful. I did have a question.
Sure.
My kid actually used to go to this school, so.
Oh, really?
Yes, I know that driveway really well. It's small.
It indeed is a small
Are you
driveway.
planning to make it bigger, more accessible?
It's a new driveway. It will connect straight from,
Okay.
I believe the street is Murata.
Uh-huh,
So right now it's offset from Murata and it's a very tiny,
right.
this will be wider and it's a new driveway altogether, moved further up the
Okay.
hill.
Part of the intersection now, I
Yeah,
guess would be the way to characterize
we
it.
make
Does
it
that-
part of
I don't think that shows in any of our, I'll make sure that next time we present that we have a bigger site plan that shows those alignments.
So you're
Okay.
saying it'll be as wide as the street, as Murata?
Not quite. It will be
Okay.
as wide as the driving area, but the street also
Okay.
includes parking, and so it would be as wide as the driving
The
area.
driving area?
Okay, okay. And is there going to be a separation between this and the school?
There is, and it's a little bit difficult to see on this view, but there's a line, a heavy line that goes around the project. That's actually a fence line. There will be gates that would be either key or card activated for people who live here who might want to go onto the schoolyard after hours to take advantage of the playground. But in general, and then there will be gates that open for cars coming in and out, but in general, it would be secured.
I don't have any questions. I too am impressed. You answered the question. I was going to ask if that was a fence line.
It is.
Because it's not displayed in your picture here, because I was concerned about the separation of the tenants and the school. So you answered that, but it's very impressive. It's exciting. It's
We're excited.
exciting.
We're very excited. We just think that this will be a wonderful place to live, and we can't wait to see it built.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I actually have some questions.
Sure.
This looks great as well, too. You made a comment about how the community center, you're going to try to incorporate more of a green roof as ways to sort of kind of soften like the view. What would be, because I know currently like for all of the apartments, it's just a flat roof. Are you able to add like additional type of green roof elements to be able to sort of kind of show more like that environmental impact lessened in general for those kind of structures as well?
We absolutely can, and we typically pull back the reins on the green roof because a lot of times our clients are nervous about it. There are definitely success stories when it comes to green roofs, and there's a lot of war stories as well. I would say that if we were going to invest in green roofs, that we would want to put them on the lower units, the two-story. First of all, because then somebody gets to see them. But the truth is that even if no one sees them, they have two really profound effects. One is the water treatment that we spoke of earlier. The other, though this may not be as much of an issue in Daly City, is urban heat island effect. If you have regular roofs, they absorb heat. When it's really hot, they transmit it again, and it makes it hotter. I don't know, that's probably.
We like that effect.
So we'll just put like, really dark roofs up there. No, I think that if it's part of the overall sensibility, then it's something we can explore further.
Yeah, I would love to see if like there's a way to sort of make that work within what your budget is.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. I was also thinking you made a comment about like reduced like the rain runoff and water. In terms of like the water, in terms of how water runs off around this site, especially since it's such a high plateau kind of going down, how does the water kind of run off? Does it just go down towards into the apartments?
So
Housing below?
as it turns out, the California Building Code is very vocal about how you treat water coming from your site. And in fact, we're required to keep it on the site.
Okay.
And for it to percolate. And so even though if you go out there, yes, it goes off of the hill,
Yeah.
we will actually be pulling it back into the site. And
Okay.
so all of our ring road will be sloping back towards the building. Now, there's an aspect of the code generally referred to as C3, and I don't remember what the three Cs are, but it's about how you control and treat stormwater before you release it into the stormwater system. I think that not only will we do the requirements, but there's an aspect that we've been discussing with the leadership of the district about, well, what else could you do with that to make it delightful? For instance, if you have a stream bed that during the winter is full of water, 3 or 4 inches deep, it's something that children could go out and experience, or even adults. I enjoy an occasional puddle splash myself. But then during the summer, it's just a dry feature that's got rocks in the bottom and gravel, and it's beautiful. Those are the kinds of things that we can incorporate that are dual function.
I also was like just you kind of were going through some of the style thoughts in terms of how you kind of design some of it. I was looking at like the outside parts of it. Are you able to sort of add like additional style elements to kind of? I mean, I don't know what the budget is for these kind of like.
Well, I guess I should
here.
ask, when you say style, what does that mean to you?
If you go back to slide,
This one?
keep going back. When you're your brainstorming slides about like. all
Oh,
the-
sure, the
yeah.
precedents, absolutely.
Yeah, because I was like looking at some of the. I just thought that like in terms of like, style, it looked more like. It didn't feel as homey. I know there's some parts that just felt like there was like the wood exposure and like those kind of balconies ways sort of kind of make it feel more homey. But
So
there's
the
just,
material palette,
yeah, it's material
something
palette.
that's a little warmer, something a
Yeah,
little.
just
yes.
to kind of make it seem as if it's more community, but at the same time also kind of blends in and sort of brings that neighborhood touch that I think sometimes in Daly City, it's not as prevalent. And I think that might be a nice thing just to like.
You'll
find
notice
ways
that none of these are local precedents, unfortunately. We
Yeah.
searched and searched, but it's true that there's a style of architecture in Daly City that is very characteristic, and I think it's recognizable. I like it for that. It's consistent. But if we're developing something new, we would not want to reproduce it. We'd want something that has a little bit more energy. So was there particular images that you reacted to that you thought really carried the day for that notion?
Yeah, bottom right. I know something that makes it a little bit more unique, but not necessarily like a modern art museum, I think.
There are definitely some detailing things that we can do.
Yeah.
For instance, here, at the windows, we're surrounding them with a flat trim piece.
Yeah.
Well, we could do that as a thin metal piece, which is a much more modern expression. It's crisp. No metal. All right.
Yeah, we
could not do
can't
that.
have metal because of the rust. Within
Yeah.
6 months, the rust will take over. So, and we also can't do a lot of natural wood, so because of the same reason, the moisture. So we've asked them to explore features that are natural like wood, but perhaps have a longer durability. So.
But I think I understand, even within the context of what Bernie's saying, that there are ways to give it a little bit more.
It's like subtle. It
punch.
doesn't have to be like huge, like stylistic, but just like those subtle nods where I think it just makes it a little bit different and doesn't feel like just more cookie cutter kind of stuff. Yeah.
Same thing.
And then I just have one last question.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking through the plans, and I'm guessing, like, so I see a bunch of staircases. Are there like elevators as well too, or?
No, as it turns out, in the state of California, if your building is only 3 stories tall, no elevators are required.
Okay.
The presumption is that somebody who is mobility impaired would live on the first floor,
Okay.
and that the other floors would just be walk-ups.
Okay.
And, there's several advantages to that, one of which is that stairs don't break down, though we might break down. I had a geriatric dog that would not go to the 3rd floor, so but it's the cost, because every elevator is, a couple $100,000.
Okay. Cool. And I guess maybe it's for Ms. Fidelis. What's the timeline like for this right now for the project?
So Mark's crew is scheduled to complete this phase schematic design. They've got a little more to do to actually get the completion of that phase. We're targeting middle of September for that. By April then, they should have enough drawings done to submit to the planning department. And of course, that's going to take a little bit of time. Next summer, in June, we plan on having the design development documents for bidding this project ready. There's a little design component that the contractors have to do using modulars, so that needs to be part of their contract. Complete that bidding in July. Complete construction documents in September, about a year from now. And by February, getting our permit submittal to the city and to the state for the modular portion. February, actually start to construct the factory modules. That's February of 2021. And then May of 2021, start construction on site. And that's going to take about a year. August 5th, 2022, your teachers should be moving in.
I do have a question about, are we doing with all electric appliances and, okay, so no gas?
So I will say the one question that we're still bandying around, and we need our mechanical engineer on board to answer, is water. Because unfortunately, it's much cheaper to heat water with gas. The big holdup with using solar just exclusively is that at night, it tends to cool down. And so no hot water in the morning, but we do have some solutions for that. What we really hope to do is rely more on sustainable or renewable resources like solar collection, rather than rely on any kind of fossil fuel-based system, just because, for reasons, I mean, all good reasons. But that's actually one of the cheapest ways to use solar energy, is to use it to heat water, and it's pretty reliable. Even, I know it seems like it's foggy here a lot. When I came in, the sun was trying to punch through. What's amazing is how much infrared you still get from those conditions. And so we'll be exploring that. We'd love to report back to you with all of our systems when we've kind of nailed it down better.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next item is 9J, consider change in breakfast and lunch meal prices. The board will discuss breakfast and lunch meal options. The current full price student breakfast is $1.50 and lunch is $2.75. The administration recommends the board consider approval of an increase for the paid breakfast price from $1.50 to $1.75 and paid lunch price from $2.75 to $3. And that would be effective January 1st, 2020.
So during the last meeting, one question was posed around a surrounding district that provides universal breakfast to all of its students. And I inquired as to how does that district pay for that? How are they able to afford something like that? That particular district has a free and reduced lunch rate of over 85%. And so the more students that you have who participate who are free and reduced, the easier it gets to pay for students who are not free and reduced, because there is a little bit of, the meals are subsidized very well for the breakfast. So you can pay for students who are otherwise would have to pay for their own. We have a rate, a free and reduced rate, last year of 54%, which it's quite possible that it could work if 100% of our students participated in the breakfast program. But short of that, the district would have to pitch in, because that would about break us even if 100% of our students participated, and we assumed more paying students would participate in the breakfast program. And That doesn't, so we'd just about break even, but that does not include the cost of potential increased staffing to prepare those additional breakfasts that would be served. And so we'd have to add that into the mix. One possibility that, if the board was interested in moving toward this in the future and we needed to gather more data, was figuring out ways to increase participation in breakfast for our students who are free. And one of those ways would be moving a breakfast serving time to a morning recess. As kids are already at school, they don't have to get there early, unless they really, 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 really love the playground structure. Maybe they can be diverted into the cafeteria, perhaps grab a bag, grab and go, eat on the yard when they're friends, and have their breakfast that way. So that may be a way to increase breakfast participation, and then we could, at that point, know what our saturation point is for free and determine if it's feasible to move to a universal breakfast, given the revenue that might result from something like that.
Thank you. Any questions or comments by board members?
So when you say 54%, was that for both breakfast and lunch? Or
It's
just-
a free and reduced status for our students, so 54% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunches as of last year.
So, if I may add, we have about 3,200 free and reduced students, and they're eating about 500 breakfasts a day. So, we're missing 2,700 of the free and reduced students that we could potentially capture during a recess period. And then they can still have lunch as well. Additionally, just for information purposes, our food service program, because of, we haven't increased the rates for over 10 years, in 18-19 year, the year which is closing out, ran at a deficit of $250,000. If we were to be have a self-sufficient program at last year's rates, instead of $2.75 for a lunch, we'll just put it all on lunch and nothing on breakfast right now, the idea. It would end up being $1.45 more, so it would be $4.20 per meal to be self-sufficient. And that would be, if the same number of students purchased lunch as they did last year. That's based on that. And we're not suggesting that we go up to $4.20 at all. I just wanted to give you the information so that you are aware of it.
Do we have any data on what the consumption is, not just offered and served, but is there any data or I know it's hard to capture that, but I don't know if there's a guesstimate of the consumption level of the food.
We don't have any empirical data where things have been weighed and measured and figured out. We do know that many students are served a meal and not all of them finish their meal, whether because they don't like it or because their stomachs are too small and can't handle the same food size at an 8th grade meal. I mean, they don't really change much between a kindergartner and an 8th grader. We could certainly, students all have the option to put their unopened food onto a share table. And students who want to eat more may, other students, we have not done a definitive study where we could say, over half of the students do not eat their full meal. It's just anecdotal at this point.
I have been told that there is a greater participation typically if they're able to have lunch at recess time, breakfast at least recess time instead of before school, because they have to show up early, right? And when we say we're not capturing 2,700 of the free and reduced students, they can all come, but they're, for one reason or another, choosing not to. And maybe because they just don't want to come early. I don't know.
That's a great idea for the elementary schools, but middle schools won't have a morning recess. So how could we capture those students?
Well, that would be something that I think we'd have to investigate if the board wants to consider. Certainly, I think the board would want to consider increasing breakfast participation just in general. But if we had some good data about how many of our free and reduced students would participate in a breakfast program if it was made more available, so that that can help us calculate, do we move toward a universal breakfast program? We could spend, between January and June figuring out a couple different models and see what works and what works in a middle school. I think we had a speaker at the last meeting who said breakfast participation went up if there was a cool teacher that hosted it in their classroom and played music or something, and kids go there for breakfast because it was cool. That might be something for middle school could pilot, and we can see, what that's like. There's different things that could happen. Certainly at the K-8s, I think those students do have a recess time, so they would be captured with the elementary school. I've seen other middle schools who've moved their start of school 5 minutes early, end of school 5 minutes late. Now they have 10 minutes in the middle between second and third period where there's like a nutrition period. And in those, you can do a grab and go breakfast during that time. So I think we'd have to explore different models.
Also, one way of doing it, perhaps, at the middle school is that you can do what's called grab and go. So it's all like in a bag and ready to go, so you can kind of come in. Of course, we've got to document everything because otherwise we get no funding at all. But they can grab like a sack breakfast and dart in.
Yeah, that would be wonderful if we could pilot it. I know that many of the trainings that I attended for work this past summer continue to speak to the obesity rate rising for our students, and they were speaking to best practices from the pre-K all the way through the 12th grade, and of course, that impacts them with chronic diseases. And so if there's any opportunity for us to engage them and the families into eating more nutritional options and or just eating, as we know, many of our families aren't eating anywhere else, really. They're getting it from us, if at all. I would love that. I would like to ask if we could figure out how to pilot and do that as you recommended. And is it January next year?
Yeah, it would be January 2020 would be a good, if we can investigate the different changes that would need to happen. I agree. I think if students eat a good breakfast or eat a meal in the morning, they're less likely to overeat after school when they run to the convenience store and buy several bags of unhealthy food because they didn't eat breakfast and they chose not to go through the lunch line. And so the more we can get them to eat food that is nutritious, get something in their bellies, then they will be less ravenous after school and less likely to eat those bags and boxes of
And that
cookies and
consistency, and
donuts.
like you said, finding someone who could model
Yeah.
that, especially at the middle school level, because they're going to be, it's a different level of energy there. But I would love that.
No, we can look at what it would, and I would see each of our middle schools taking a different approach, so we can see which one has the higher success in improving of meal delivery.
So on that note, especially understanding that our rate has not moved or increased, based on that, I would like to recommend that we do actually consider the rate increase. I know that it's not reflective of the Bay Area many times when we're looking at these rates, but I also know on the end of trying to get the reimbursement back, I understand that process, and hearing that we're at a $250K loss, the deficit based on what's not getting reimbursed. Is that how I'm hearing that right? I'm just wondering if I'm understanding that right.
It's really based on the fact that though we haven't increased meal prices in the last 10 years, salaries are increasing like a lot over the last 10 years. Well, over the last 6 years, they've increased a considerable amount. And so there's only so much the program can sustain itself. Now, a 25% increase in lunch is going to bring about $40,000, I think, if the same number of students decide to eat. But it at least helps a little bit. The deficit's not going to go away from that.
So before you make your motion, I haven't spoken yet
Okay,
tonight.
oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I had
so-
one more question, if I
Okay,
may.
good, yeah.
I wanted to ask what our processes for free and reduced students who may have a balance, and, I mean, I've seen it a lot where kids, I mean, it may be small in our mind, but the end of the school year, they have not paid off their balance. Are they still served throughout the school year?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
There's no, the only thing we can do is pretty much send letters or call parents. The student will never be denied food for breakfast or lunch. Even the paid student that has a negative balance, because we do experience that as well. Come the end of the year, we have to write it off. We can't carry it over into the following year.
And I think speaking more to Ms. Liang I's point, staff have been instructed that students, this is not a conversation you hold with a student, late balances or anything like that. That's a conversation held with the adults. And so staff communicate straight with the family adult around unpaid balances, and the student is not part of that conversation.
And it's actually not even allowed.
Yeah, well,
It's not just the
But
district.
that's a change in practice, because 5 years ago, that was not the case. And so now all staff have been instructed, not only is it not allowed, it's just not a good idea. It doesn't help the situation much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you were able to look at the video from the last meeting, but I was actually one of the, I don't know if anyone else asked, but I asked how could we try to get down to a free breakfast, and if not, well, I don't think, well, let me just stop and slow down. I'd like the conversations that we're having about feeding more students. Like, that's something I would always support, but I don't attach that to my reasoning for raising prices. And we're being asked to consider this, but I don't think we're being forced to do this. So I don't support it right now, because I would like to see us have free breakfast for the students. And at the most, I would support raising the lunch if we go down on the breakfast, but I don't support any raising of breakfast and lunch. So that was kind of what my thought was about it. So you weren't here. Yeah.
I think my biggest concern is, I agree, I wish all of our meals could, I seen a district where it was free for both meals. But I do get concerned that this is an increasing cost for the district. And I know it's no fault to the students, but I actually am willing to take that back, my motion, and really look at other alternatives. But I know we can't look at that until January to really consider how we would introduce piloting, getting more research.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we can wait that long.
Well, we would certainly be able to pilot the breakfast and see what kind of participation we get by switching it up. And then that gives you information to see is a universal breakfast or a free breakfast for all an option that the board wants to consider, given this information, right? So if we can, what I mean by saturation is like all 3,200 of our free and reduced students are not going to all eat breakfast no matter what time we serve it. But if we can make it easier for more students to access it and not ask them to get to school 20, 15 minutes early, which is hard to do for many students and more their adults, then we can see what that level of participation looks like. And then the board has information to determine what a universal breakfast would mean monetarily, given that level of participation in the free and reduced prices. And that's something we probably would not have enough information on until maybe April, because you'd want to give it at least 2 or 3 months of implementation. So if you were considering you don't want to raise the prices until we can offer free breakfast, that decision cannot be made till April, or that decision may never be made, because I'm not sure we will ever be able to offer a free breakfast, given our level of free and reduced rates.
Then I had a question too about the 500 breakfasts that we're averaging being sold a day, or served, I should say, right? Do you know how much it costs to serve those 500 breakfasts? Or is the cost just based on, we have to pay the staff to serve them? It doesn't matter how many they produce that day?
Well, actually, we pay the staff, and of course, we pay for Sodexo for the food. And, I mean, I could do a quick calculation as to what that would cost, what the cost of the food that it's costing us.
But without asking you to actually do the math now, I guess my point is, for me, it's not about how many people who can have breakfast don't get it. I mean, I think we should serve as many people as we can, and whatever time of day that is, or whatever the process that makes that happen, we should foster that. However, that's not my reasoning for raising their prices for the students. So I don't know how to explain that, but that's basically how I feel, that
And you're
if
referring mostly
we
to
raise the
breakfast?
price or lower the price, if we still sell 500 breakfasts, to
Yeah.
me, the issue is the salary that we're paying to those workers. That's the issue, and I don't want to raise the cost of food for the students because we have to keep paying the staff more. I'm not comfortable with that reasoning.
Well, if we were able to capture more of the free and reduced students during a break period, that would also decrease our deficit spending, or help to decrease. Because the more sales that we have, because, we're going to get the federal and the state reimbursements for both the free and the reduced students. And, our labor, if it's double, is not that much more if we double the sales. Because right now, we're feeding 500 free and reduced and about 100 paid students during that time. So that means, again, there's 2,700 free and reduced students that and a reduced price is 30 cents for it. And of course, the free, there's no charge to the student at all. But if we're able to capture those students because of changing the timing, that would also help it should help our deficit be reduced.
I get that, but then if we were to do that and then charge the students more, and then we would still pay the staff more the next year, I still don't.
Yeah, I think I hear what you're saying. I think those are two separate decisions, and the board approaches each separately.
I
Right,
agree. Yeah,
you approach staff compensation separately.
Right.
And you approach setting student lunch and breakfast prices separately.
Right, so that's why I wanted to
There
state
is,
that.
and
because
so
how-
the only thing is that we just offered you the opportunity to consider the linkage there, because there is a linkage. If we offer a program, we do
Right.
need to pay the staff to run that program. And we also offered you comparables with other districts. We did not put on there the basic aid districts, who charge well over $5 or $6 for a lunch at their schools. And we just put the other LCFF-funded districts on there. And we, that's just all for information. We just didn't want to go down the road another 5-6 years and say, why didn't you tell us that we were losing so much money with our food service program? So this does need to be an active decision by the board to say, raise the prices, be more comparable to surrounding districts that are like us, or let's keep it the same.
I had a couple of questions. When you say last year 54% qualified, is that enrolled or they just qualified?
They were free and reduced because they have to apply or else be direct certified. And then if they qualify, if they qualify for free or reduced, they're in the system.
They're in it, okay.
As free or reduced. So if they come through the lunch line, the free students do not pay. It's in the system. They don't have to come through, but if they do, they're in the
Okay.
system.
And I know at the last meeting, we kind of mentioned maybe there should be a beef up in effort to get more kids signed up, specifically our Spanish-speaking population, with, other flyers and verbiage that it is safe for them to do so. Did we do?
Yeah, so Ms. Kessler and I have been working through some language and getting it reviewed, because I don't want to make a promise that we cannot keep. And so we do have some draft language, and we'll be looking at it in the next day or two, and once we decide what it is, we'll send it out to the board. Currently, as we understand it, the conditions under which a family might be denied a permanent residency do not include benefits that children receive. So we would at least want to get that out, that your child's participation in these programs do not impact your ability to, as we understand it today, do not impact your ability to apply for permanent residency in the future.
Okay.
But my hesitation, as is most, is that what is true today is we cannot count on it. So we do need, I do not want to give false hope and false promise, but I do want to be able to give accurate, because there is some information in the community, I believe, that says if you participate in these programs, your status will be hurt, which is not true today. Right.
Just to give a little bit of context, when I used to work for social services with federal aid programs and immigration issues arose, that was the verbiage we were told by the federal government, is to say that as of today, you are safe to apply for these programs. So I don't see why we couldn't do that too.
Yep.
Yeah.
We will certainly be getting something out. We talked about doing it in the first or second week of school, just to allow things to settle down, and then families who are not reluctant, they can apply in the first or second week of school. The families who are reluctant, we can target with that message.
Okay, because if we beef up enrollment into the free and reduced, that's going to help our cause with bringing free breakfast, right?
Only if they participate in the breakfast program.
Right.
But what it does help our cause is our district funding is partially based on free and reduced participation.
Yeah, or anticipating.
And so a conversation, again, to be had with our legislators as you coffee and tea with them, is to let them know, is there another measure of poverty that we can use besides free and reduced rates participation, because that is not necessarily an accurate measure, especially if families have chosen not to participate for whatever reason. So I think we need to begin exploring with our state leaders other measures of poverty that could capture the same information that can be used. So if you get that opportunity, I encourage you to do so.
Of course, that's a federal, the majority of reimbursement comes federal, but we do get state reimbursement as well.
That's just for our meal reimbursement. I'm just talking about
Yes.
district funding levels.
Funding in general.
The supplemental and concentration. If we
Right.
can get another measure of poverty inserted, that would be preferable.
Okay. So that's basically what I'm bringing up. Like, are there any other alternatives, or are we being asked, or are we being told to do something? So I just have a couple more questions, because I don't want to
that's
prolong
all
this.
right.
But, so the issue is that we're deficit spending in our food program. Is that the issue?
That is correct.
Okay. And if we
And
do,
and when we
we're-
do that, we have to contribute. We're running out of the reserves that are in there because we're using those reserves, and eventually, the general fund will have to carry it.
So, and if we do what we're being asked to approve tonight, how much of a dent will that make in the deficit spending?
Not much, about $40,000.
So, okay, yeah, I don't have any more questions.
It's a small step towards it, but if we did move the breakfast to recess time in the elementary schools, and if we were able to successfully capture more free and reduced students in that, then that would also help to decrease that deficit spending.
So I don't have any more questions, but my last comment is, to me, what it seems like is we're being asked to make a value decision, and we have the choice of where we want the money to come from to pay for the food. And that's basically how I see it.
And I just want to underscore, it is your choice, and that's why it's being brought to you. We did not have to bring it to you, but if we didn't bring it to you and you said, we never chose that, you never told us, then that would place us in a difficult spot. So
That's true.
we felt it our responsibility to make it a choice for you. We're not telling you to do this, we're just providing you the information, we're making a recommendation. It doesn't solve the issue. It does put a small dent into the issue, but it does not solve it. We'd have to raise it by $1.45 if we wanted to solve it.
There you go. There you go.
I have a question.
Both lunch and breakfast, or?
Just the lunch price would need to go up by $1.45 if you wanted to be a completely self-sustaining program,
Based on last year's.
based
But
on
then
last
we
year's
was-
participation.
Have to pay raises to the food.
So I have some questions. You mentioned sort of like additional efforts to promote the program to try to get as many students involved as possible. And you talked about different ways that we could possibly test to try to drive up those numbers in general. You mentioned it takes about 2-3 months to get data. Can you escalate, or like not escalate, but in terms of like push up the timing so that, say, we could try something in the fall or something that instead of like in January to like make that timeline a lot shorter? Is that possible?
Well, it'd be a conversation we need to have with schools. I mean, I
Okay.
think it's not just simple to say, oh, we're going to do breakfast at recess time, and yay, tomorrow, let's start. No.
Say, for example, like say
So-
the grab-and-go lunches kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, so, but there does
Yeah.
need to be some conversation around what do you need to change? How do you need to change your supervision? How do you set up, how do you communicate to families? So January seemed like a good date because it would take about, anything that we do takes about 2 months of communication. In general, you could change things up, quickly, but then if you don't spend time with communication, then you end up with another problem. So.
Is there a way we could get the message out to the broader community? Are we working on, there is a flyer? Do we have a flyer? Do we have anything? Or can we pass a resolution or something to ask someone out there to give us some money for food or give us food?
Well, many communities.
Harvest something, I don't know.
Well, much of our food is subsidized, and it's very low cost, and we do have to purchase from that. You need to purchase a certain amount of commodities.
Yeah.
There are efforts in other school districts that ask for donations from the community to help pay for unpaid meal balances. I mean, that might be something that we could look into as well. Just to put it out there, not everybody can pay for their lunch, even though they don't qualify for free and reduced. Is there anybody out there who has an extra $20 that wants to give to this fund, and we can apply it there? That's something
Sounds
that's happening in more and more in districts, especially since we are not able to. Well, GoFundMe charges a surcharge. It would be it would be something. We would set up an account here, but that's something that we can investigate and pursue. And we just want to decrease the amount of cash that's flowing around. So we'd see if we can do this in an electronic way, because
Yes.
the less cash you have, the less seepage you have, so to speak.
Okay. So I would be willing to help if we have the language, or if we have even what you presented to us, but we gear it towards the community. I would be willing to help spread the message.
Okay. Once you figure out the instruments, the structures once we figure out the needed structures to be able to support receiving those funds, then we can do that. Ideally, it would be a nonprofit that does that for us and then just gives us one check. That would be the ideal way for it to happen. So we'd probably have a conversation with different nonprofits to see if they'd be willing to do that, versus the district receiving lots of small donations. That could happen too, but As long as if it's cash, it really gets complicated. So that it may cost us more to pay a person to do it than any funds we might receive.
Thank you, Trustee Ali. I agree. I'd love to support that effort too, and just even the outreach of doing the unpaid balance. I do see that that's a popular trend right now because people want to give back, they just don't know how, and that's something that they've been gravitating to. So it seems like we're coming up with alternatives that we'd like to see, and I'm supportive of that. I withdrew my motion to move forward on this based on the conversations that are happening here. I just wanted to reiterate that.
So it sounds to me, and tell me if I'm incorrect, I don't hear another motion. I did hear some sentiment around postponing this decision possibly till April or May, and with information around what happens if we change up how we deliver breakfast, to be able to incorporate a decision, perhaps with the universal breakfast and an increase in lunch price. So at least the families who do both may not see an increase overall. Okay.
I do want to also really put a push on looking at the other measures that we could seek out our legislators to support. I know that people have been asking our Congresswoman, Jackie Spear, several times because this is a conversation that we need to have with them. But if we are strategic about that and even getting allies in the community, I think we've talked about it, many school districts, but there hasn't been an organized, concerted effort to really revisit that. But I do think that this is a good opportunity, and I don't mind assisting in facilitating some of those conversations or just supporting those efforts.
Yeah, and I think at this point it's just pushing the idea. I don't think we need to come with the solution. We just say we need to find another measure of poverty. This is not working. This is not working. It's a federal rate, and we know that being poor in a state like Mississippi is very different than being poor in a county like San Mateo. And somebody who's poor in San Mateo County can actually be very, very well off in the county of Mississippi. And it's not fair to use that same standard, but I think we just push it. I think we should push it with our federal, for sure, but nothing's moving there. I think we have a greater chance of pushing it with our state legislators, because they understand, they're open to hearing. They will not flinch when you tell them families don't want to apply for federal benefits. They understand, and they also recognize that California is a leader for providing alternatives, and so.
Currently, the state reimburses for lunch, free lunch and free breakfast, free or reduced lunch and breakfasts at 23.68 cents a meal, so under 24 cents a meal from the state. And that is also based on the federal poverty level.
So from what I'm hearing, it sounds like the board does not want to take any action. Is that correct from what I'm hearing? Okay.
And we'll revisit this in April at the earliest, after a couple of months, and we'll provide regular updates, just so you have a sense of what's happening with the program.
Okay. Next item is item 10A, certificated resignations. The administration recommends approval of the following certificated resignations and requests appropriate resolutions be prepared commending them, those with 10 or more years of service with the district. Victoria Kwan, first grade teacher at Westlake Elementary. Kirsten Linane, counselor at FDR and Westlake Elementary. And Carrie Santino, fifth grade teacher at FDR.
As it always happens towards the end of that summer, and right before that June 30th deadline, a few people make their different opportunities known. So Victoria, Kirsten, and Carrie did move on to different pastures. So I just want to say they were great employees, and I wish them the best of luck in their new endeavors.
Great. So I move that we accept the following, certificated resignations of Victoria Juan, Kirsten Linane, and Carrie Centeno, and appropriate resolutions be prepared commending those with 10 or more years of service with our district.
First and a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Next item's item 10C, administrative appointments, 2019-2020. The administration recommends approval of the following administrative appointments. Rachel Carrion, Dean of Academics at Benjamin Franklin, effective August 6, 2019. 1 MWDMA, Step 1, $98,648 plus $2,200 for a master's degree. And Alex Delanda, Vice Principal at Benjamin Franklin, effective July 31st, 2019. 1 MWMA, Step 2, $109,013 plus $1,100 for a master's degree.
Well, we're lucky to have these folks here in the audience, as well as their principal, Ms. Martinez, out there, and colleague, Mr. Hagan. So I'd like to just introduce Rachel Carrion. She's worked at Girton Village, or George Washington for
Let's
several
have the
years.
board vote on them first before. before.
I take back everything I said.
Any comments or questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the following administrative appointments as listed for Ms. Carrion and Mr. Delanda. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly.
Second.
First and a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Congratulations. Ms. Valenti.
Rerun the video, please. No, again, Rachel, who's coming to us most recently from Thomas Edison, also worked at George Washington for several years and has done several of our Big Lift Inspiring Summers. So we welcome her as Dean over at Ben Franklin. And Alex, who had been working at Thomas Edison prior to that, so they're colleagues from that adventure as well. And this last year, he was over at TRP working as Dean. So I want to welcome them both and thank you for approving their appointment.
Would you like to come up and give a couple words of comments?
Yeah. Rachel, would you like to come on up?
Hi, good evening. Like Brent said, I'm Rachel Carrion, and it's my 9th year in the district, and I'm really looking forward to working with my new team, Alex and Bettina. They've been really supportive these last few weeks preparing for the school year, and today was our first day at Ben Franklin. It was really exciting to see the students. They're really happy to be back, and I really thank you for this opportunity.
Congratulations and welcome.
Thanks.
And Mr. Delanda, would you like to speak as well?
Before I take up the microphone.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. It's with great enthusiasm that I assume the position as assistant principal at Ben Franklin. I've been with the district since 2006. I started as a substitute teacher and in many different roles and long-term sub and became a teacher and here I am now. I love the district. Again, today was our first day and it was a mix of a little nervousness with excitement. It's a wonderful administrative team. Ms. Martinez came here to support us tonight. I want to say thank you. And of course, Ms. Carrion, we make a wonderful team and I really look forward to the year. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I also have a speaker card. Paul Hagan, teacher at Benjamin Franklin.
Hey, Paul Hagan, California Federation of Teachers, Local 3267. I just want to rise briefly and commend the district on the selection of administration for our school. And I think I can speak for the teachers. I didn't really ask them, but we're very happy with having Alex and Rachel aboard. I also just, speaking as the president of the local, it makes me very proud when I look here and I say, look, we have 5 administrators in the room.
Yeah.
4 of them taught in this district for a number of years before moving into administration. I am very proud of that. I'm sorry. Man at the table. My apologies, Brett. Yeah. I just have to tell you that makes me proud, and I think it makes our district stronger. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to extend our congratulations again to Ms. Carrion and Mr. Delana again. Wishing you guys all the best in your new roles as well, too. Next item is item 10D, CBST and CLAD waiver, certificated education specialist, CBEST and CCLAD waivers required for a certificated employee for the 2019-2020 school year in order to pass the CBEST exam and to complete the CLAD coursework. The administration recommends approval of the request for waiver for Joyce V. Cruz, education specialist, RSP teacher at MP Brown and Woodrow Wilson.
I had a kind of a question about it. So it says the waiver is required in order for them to pass the exam. It's confusing. Oh, yeah.
So when somebody doesn't pass one or both of those requirements, the first and or second time, the waiver requirements shift, where you'd have to get a waiver for one in order then to get the other waiver. So that's why there's the CLAD and CVEST on this one. This is one of our folks that came in from out of the country, and there are the requirements. Ms. Libram was able to stretch it out a little bit. This particular teacher, Ms. Cruz, is quite close to getting it passed, so we just needed a little more time in order to start the year. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to have her in the classroom after early September. So that's why we request that the board take this into consideration.
Cool, thank you. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
I'll make the motion that we approve the CBEST and CLAD waiver as required for certificate employee for 2019-2020 school year for the waiver for Joyce Cruz, special ed specialist.
Second.
There's a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That was unanimous. So moving along, next item is item 12, Board Policies Administrative Regulations. 12A, Board Policy Administrative Regulations for the March 2019 CSBA Board Policy Revisions, second reading. The board will review and revise Board Policy Administrative Regulations from the March 2019 CSBA Board Policy Revisions as stated in a second reading. Are there any comments on the second reading?
Shared with the superintendent for AR 1312.3, oh my eyes, H, just to get more clarification.
Yeah, and so I haven't had a chance to look at this more carefully. One option is that, what's presented in the policy is reflective of what is currently in policy. It's updated with legislative language. I think it adds some protected classes. It adds protected classes of who can qualify for these kinds of complaints. And the question you had was about the option that was selected, and I just reflected what was in the current policy, and I did not have a chance to look at it carefully. So a couple options exist. We can pass everything but 1312, AR 1312.3. And I can have an opportunity to look at it and think through all the different considerations that are behind that recommendation. Or we could just pass it now as it exists with the new language inserted. And as I look through it, and I think there may be some further conversation the board wants to have, and I would run it by you and see if you would like to have it revisited, and the board can revisit it, just that policy alone. So there's two options.
I like the second option, if everyone's okay with that. I mean, I just think for me, it was just a little bit more clarification.
Yes, sure.
Otherwise, everything.
Okay. Yeah, I would be happy to look into that and look and behind the recommendation, what is behind it besides that's what we always do. So we don't always want to do what we always do. Sometimes it's worth changing.
Thank you.
Okay.
So with that being said, I'd like to make the motion for option 2, for the passage of it as it stands and possibly revisiting if there was need for us to do so.
Second?
First and a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That was unanimous. Next item, 13A, Board Governance Matters. 13A is Resolution Number 19-08-21C, Commitment to Environmental Sustainability Actions. The Governing Board will consider adoption of Resolution Number 19-08-21C, Commitment to Environmental Sustainability Actions. I was going to let Ms. Liaga Anaway sort of just kind of open it up, since I know that you had brought this resolution before the board.
Thank you, and I want to thank Superintendent Vidalis, because I know we do a lot of resolutions. This one in particular came to my attention, as I mentioned to the President, President Koo, through some of the partnerships that I was engaged with. And it was nice to see some of the students involved with environmental sustainability projects. But then when I was given a sample of this resolution, I had shared it with our superintendent, and I had asked, what are we doing that's aligned with this? And then come to find out that the County Office of Ed was the only holder of the resolution, if I'm right. It may be Redwood City. There was no one else that had supported or had passed this resolution in our county. And I was glad to hear that the superintendent has shared that we do some of these things already. They're already incorporated into what we do at the site level. So the reason I thought it would be nice to introduce this resolution was, one, to continue that momentum and maybe continue to build on it, but more importantly, to validate that that's something that we already do, and to, as I mentioned, to sustain it and enhance what's already in place. So I'm glad that we're considering it. And I want to, again, just want to thank the superintendent's assistance in facilitating this.
Any questions or comments by board members on this item?
No, just once again, we're in the forefront, as you know, I've mentioned in the past that we're trendsetters a lot, and if it takes us to have that voice out there about the environment, then I'm all for it.
I agree as well, too. I mean, considering what's going on across the country at the federal level, statewide level, I think it's very timely resolution as well, just making sure that we sort of reaffirm our commitment to these kind of, I think, more just kind of understandable, like basic kind of standards, what we should be doing. But I think just kind of additionally reaffirms what we should and will always be doing. If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I would love to make the motion. I'd like to make the motion and request that resolution number 19-08-21C, commitment to environmental sustainability actions, be considered.
There's a first. Is there a second?
Second?
First and second, may I please get a roll call?
Mr. Ali,
Aye.
Ms. Manio,
Aye.
Ms. Leah Inga Anuai,
Aye.
Mr. Koo.
Aye. That was unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Might I interrupt? Ms. Colbry was probably concerned with the PowerPoint slide, and I didn't hear of the consent agenda. If we did a roll call vote for that, there were several resolutions on there. We did? We did not do a roll call? Okay, we may want to go back to that.
Okay.
And I apologize for not marking that in your cheat sheet.
This is the consent agenda, you mean?
Consent agenda, yes.
Okay, so I'll return back to 7A on the consent agenda. May I please get a roll call on that?
Mr. Ali,
Aye.
Ms. Manio,
Aye.
Ms. Leah Inga Anuai,
Aye.
Mr. Koo.
Aye. So that was unanimous as well, too. Item 14 is governance team member comments, reports, and board meeting reflection.
I just want to say I appreciate a productive meeting, a fluid meeting. I love that we flowed through. I know we got stuck on an item tonight, but I think that was a good thing. we were able to say that, we can say no, we can revisit this, and it was a collective effort. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that dialogue. I appreciate the opportunity to respect that we have different positions and be open-minded about it. That's what I love about our board. I also want to say welcome to Dr. Joyner for your first meeting, at least for me. We haven't had an opportunity to really spend time together, so it's nice seeing you join us. So welcome, and we look forward to having a great kick start of a relationship. So thank you for joining us here at JESD.
I also want to express gratitude to the board and how well we work together, as well as our administrative staff who do a lot of the heavy lifting for us so that we can make better decisions, and to the staff that is here at our meeting as well, and to you, Trustee Manufo, for bringing this resolution to us. I think it's really important that we set an example and show it. So I would also like to revisit this resolution in some time in the future to see what we're doing, and just re-meet our level of commitment to it as well. So thank you all.
So I focused on, we will keep our focus on the best interests of our students, and I just also want to welcome Dr. Joyner and just say, let's get work done to everybody.
In terms of the guidelines, I thought we will listen actively and communicate openly. I thought we did that pretty well tonight in terms of a variety of topics. I also wanted to share an update from my last report. So I mentioned at my last meeting that I'm working with the San Mateo County School Board Association to lead an initiative to help encourage parents and community members to get more involved in advocating for additional education funding. So we actually now have a website live. It is ivoteforkids.com. It is a website that will seek to drive parents and community members to take the pledge to vote, and additionally to take the pledge to vote for additional education funding across San Mateo County and across California. And it's our hopes that we can activate and gain additional voices from across the county, just be able to advocate for funding either at the statewide level, federal level, through school district ballot measures, county ballot measures, statewide ballot measures, just to make sure that education funding is a top priority for leaders at Sacramento, DC, and across the county as well too. So ivoteforkids.com, it's live. If you see problems with the website, you can tell me, but hopefully not.
Nice, congratulations. Is that for FOR or the number four?
No, just IVOTEFOR kids, KIDS.com. Yeah. And I can also share that with everybody else as well too after. So I think that's it. So next item is item 15, persons wishing to address the board on closed session items. Are there any speakers on closed session items? Nope. Seeing none, we will convene to closed session. But before I do so, I would like to ask for a moment of silence and adjourn memory for Daume Capañas Santa Cruz, who's the husband of Tanya Santa Cruz, the attendance technician at Fernando Rivera Intermediate School. So if I may ask for a moment of silence in his honor. Okay, thank you. We will now convene to closed session after a couple-minute recess. Thank you so much.